On June 11th, 2006, RVD defeated John Cena in the main event of that year's ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view. The title win would be the first and only WWE title win of RVD's career. His reign would then be cut short following his and Sabu's arrest less than a month later. On July 1st, 2006, RVD was driving on the interstate to Philadelphia with Sabu in the passenger seat. The duo then got pulled over by local police for speeding, and the interaction was caught on camera. The interaction was going smoothly until the officer smelled marijuana inside of RVD's vehicle. An arrest of the WWE star would then ensue, and what would follow that arrest would be the downfall of WWE's latest experiment. Let's back it up for a minute. John Cena vs. RVD from One Night Stand at the Hammerstein Ballroom in Manhattan featured one of the absolute most raucous crowds in wrestling history. They showered John Cena with booze and several vulgar chants, and even threw Cena's t-shirt back at him after he did his patented toss of his t-shirt into the crowd. There is no doubt in my mind that if Cena had walked away holding the WWE Championship that night, a riot would have broken out across the streets of New York City. Luckily for the patrons in attendance and hardcore fans all around the world, RVD would pin John Cena's shoulders to the mat for a 3 count in the single most defining moment of his career as he became the WWE Champion. He would then go on to hold both the WWE and ECW championships after he was handed the ECW title by Paul Heyman on the debut episode of WWE ECW. In hindsight, this move was clearly done in an effort to legitimize ECW as WWE's third brand, as RVD was going to lose the title anyway a short while after to Edge. This, along with Kurt Angle being drafted to the brand, would set up ECW for success. And that could not have been any further from the case. Kurt Angle would leave WWE shortly after landing in ECW, after he asked to be released from his contract, and would then move on to TNA. The biggest blow to ECW's relaunch came when the news of RVD's arrest became public knowledge. WWE, they had no choice but to strip RVD of both his titles and suspend him for 30 days for violating the company's wellness policy. RVD, from the beginning, was never really seen by the brass ring in WWE as a top guy, so this arrest was more than enough ammunition needed to justify that stance. Let's focus on just how bad of a look this was for the company for a moment. In 2006, marijuana did not have the same stigma that it has now. It's currently legal in most of the country and is not seen as a bad thing by a great portion of the population. Back then though, marijuana had a stigma of being a really bad drug. If you couple this with the image of steroids and wrestlers that has existed since the heyday of pro wrestling in the 80s, this was a publicity nightmare for WWE. On top of all that, RVD was the absolute top guy in the entire world of pro wrestling when this arrest occurred. I know guys like Randy Orton have gotten away with things like this, but the office just likes him more than they like RVD. Orton was a homegrown talent that made a ton of money for WWE thanks to his merchandise and his popular RKO move. So he was pretty much exempt from any and all rules, as we've seen time in and time out. RVD, who rose to fame in an outcast company like ECW, and then eventually made his way to WWE by the time he was 30, just wasn't valued that same way. Now here is where things get a little wild. On an episode of Rene Dupree's podcast, Café de Rene, it featured RVD as a guest, and it saw Rene allude to an interesting conspiracy theory that RVD quickly shot down, but the theory still intrigued me enough nonetheless to look into it. Dupree made a comment about the arrest being a strange coincidence, and he commented that somebody in the office stooged RVD out. He made note of how they were jealous people and said, quote, "Just when you win the world title, you get pulled over," end quote. RVD quickly refuted that by talking about the times he got arrested for marijuana that no one knew about, and he said that no one knew about them because he wasn't WWE champion, which is fair. Now, I did tons of digging about the rumors and speculation of someone within WWE orchestrating the arrest of RVD, and I found nothing. I looked for shoot interviews and podcast clips addressing the arrest, and there was not one single mention made aside from Rene Dupree's. Even Wrestling Reddit pulled no results on the matter, so there's only one of two answers that are correct. Dupree made this up, or WWE has done a great job sweeping these blistering allegations underneath the rug. RVD did speak about Triple H and even Chris Jericho and how those two guys were not particularly fond of him backstage due to his stubbornness and unwillingness to adapt to the WWE style of things. Now, could Triple H have disliked RVD so much that he would not only arrange for him to be arrested and ruin his career in the process? That seems unlikely, but if it is indeed true, it is certainly a fact about the current creative operator within WWE that would be best kept a secret. RVD quickly refuted Dupre's claim, like I said, but he did appear to be uncomfortable while doing so. Now, on to the ECW side of things. With WWE set to build its third brand around a core of Kurt Angle, RVD, Sabu, CM Punk, and The Big Show, the ball was rolling for ECW to be a credible brand. Before things could really get kicked off with the brand though, RVD was suspended and Kurt Angle was released. This left the show to feel more like a WWE production than the old school ECW the fans came to know and love in the late 90s, early 2000s. You guys know what I'm talking about. Big Show winning the ECW title 3 days after RVD's suspension just literally felt like a death blow to the brand, let's be honest. No disrespect now to Big Show, but he was simply the polar opposite of what ECW was and what their fans wanted. Kurt Angle, on the other hand, he was such a good talent that he would have been heavily respected by the hardcore fans of ECW. Big Show just didn't have that kind of juice. RVD's arrest was a classic case of sails going out on a well put together ship. However, ECW did start to recover and build a little bit of momentum in 2007 when they brought Chris Benoit over to the brand. Benoit was then slated to win the ECW title in the finals of a tournament for the vacant championship at Night of Champions, and well, we all know how that turned out. It just felt like this brand was snake bitten from the start. I remember when WWE promoted SVR 08 as featuring ECW, and it legit only had like a handful of ECW talent due to RVD being gone, Benoit's passing, and much more chaos. Sometimes things just don't work out. RVD paid ode to Afro Man's hit song, as he was supposed to build ECW as a big brand, and then he got high. Now, I'm not saying that RVD was 100% to blame for the failure of WWE's ECW, but it just felt like WWE stopped trying with the brand after he got arrested. Who knows? Maybe Vince McMahon realized that he was in way over his head by building a third brand, and it would have failed anyways, regardless if RVD had not gotten suspended. The reality of the situation is this though. The brand got off to a terrible start, and every single time they tried to pick up momentum, something bad kept happening. RVD would then leave WWE on May 28, 2007, after, believe it or not, defeating Randy Orton in his last match. WWE ECW would continue to air for almost 3 more years, with its final episode coming on February 16, 2010. And boy, by that time, it was a sad shell of what the original ECW was. I used to watch this show religiously as a kid for some unknown reason. Actually, I can think of one. In all seriousness though, ECW helped me in ways I did not realize at the time, so it'll always have a special place in my heart. I wish ECW could have gotten a proper run with RVD at the helm and Kurt Angle by his side as a featured superstar, but it was just not meant to be. This has been another episode of Wrestling Uncovered. Thank you for tuning in. I'll speak to you on the next one. Peace.